There we go.
Okay.
Let's start off again from the beginning, please.
Okay. So let me just close this app up. So basically, what I'm going to do is I'm going to launch the app. So, oops, sorry. Launch the app, and it does the login. And then you see all your employees here, right? Staff, okay? So you go over here and you tap and you say, okay, now before we do that, let's just go to manage kiosk access. So right now, there are you, Patricia Moore, and Robert Gardner who have kiosk access. Now, I've built it smart enough to know that if someone like Anis or another person here, Jason, don't have photographs, so when you go and you say manage kiosk access, it knows that those people don't have photographs, so it won't allow you to assign them to a kiosk because they don't have an active photo. You know, they just have that little icon. So you can tap here and you can see all the people who are currently set up to be assigned to a kiosk and all the ones who are not. So you can then flip them on and say, okay, I want to assign it, but let's get back to that afterwards. So right now, I'm going to go to kiosks, and right now I don't have any kiosks registered. So I've just plugged in the kiosk, I put the IP address in, and so the kiosk is on my network now. So now I can hit plus, and what I can do is I can give us a kiosk a name. So I already so I'm gonna just call it Charmel Kiosk. I give it the IP. I put in the current password, which is normally the default 123456. I put in a new password, and then the current settings I just have is enforce the mask rule, allow strangers, and enable stranger login. So the minute I hit the save button, it's gonna go out and it's gonna automatically set up this kiosk completely without touching anything more. So when you hit save, it goes and verifies and you can see all the things that happen. So it's gone through and it tells you immediately the kiosk came online, it verified the IP, it set the password, it got the MAC address, it registered the kiosk to the company, it sets the kiosk time to local time, it sets the kiosk configuration, the user settings, it updates the mobile app settings, and then it tells you the kiosk is registered. Immediately when it registers, it sees, it starts the staff synchronization, looks at all the staff records, and says, okay, I've got to add Patricia Moore, I've got to add Robert Gardner, and I've got to add Tama, and then it completes it, and now it says, okay, the kiosk is online. So now when I hit the done button, you'll see the kiosk is there now and ready to roll. So if I now tap on this kiosk, you'll see it displays me the information like what it is, the MAC address, the IP, what rules are set, etc. Okay, I'm still working on this screen and this screen and this screen, which I'll get done probably today. But now at this point, this kiosk is fully set up and ready.
What do those two screens do?
So this screen here shows you the configuration options that you have on it. Like for instance, the mask rule, the strangers, enable login, and any other information about the configuration of how this kiosk is set up at the moment. Okay, I'm gonna add a few more. Then this one will show you it'll read off the kiosk all the people who are currently registered to that kiosk, okay? So you'll see that, and then history will tell you some information on the scans that it has taken, okay? So now basically this kiosk is ready. So now from that, you'll see it's called Charmel's Kiosk, etc. So if I now go basically back to the screen sharing, and I go and show you the screen on the, how do I see? You're gonna see my, how do I make it so you can you see my face when I turn this off?
Yeah, I got both your face and I got
okay.
Really, it's nice.
Okay, so for instance, if I go and let's say I just stop the sharing of the screen and you just see me now, okay? So now let me just get this out of the way, okay? So now, if I go and I bring the kiosk into view, which you'll be able to see, you'll see that, come on, turn on, baby. Okay, so you'll see now, the kiosk says Sharmel's Kiosk.
Oh,
Its
nice.
ID is number 3. It tells you, so I set up the name and everything like that to whatever you've put it. So for instance, it knows that this is the ID number of this kiosk basically in setup. So now if I go and I scan, it's gonna scan my face, but it says normal temperature, but it's not going to show me my face because I'm not registered in the kiosk, right? So now if I want to register me on the kiosk, I can go back here. I can go again and I can say manage kiosk access. And then I can just go Sharmel like this. You'll see that you'll actually see, let me just go back to sharing. So I now go back to sharing mode and I say, okay, go back to this, share it again. So now I come here and I've tapped Sharmel. So if I say update kiosk assignments now, it tells me, and now what it's done is it actually updates those assignments to the kiosk. So what you'll be able to see is that if you hit done here, and you're going to go back to the screen where it says kiosks online, and you're going to see registered, you're going to see the people on the kiosk that have been registered to that kiosk there. So you'll be able to instantly see what is on the kiosk here in registered, okay? So that, for instance, and now if I go back to, all the bloody things here, stop that share. If I now go back to the kiosk and I do put my name in, okay. It's hard. I can't do it fast enough to flip it to see that it does the recognition, but that's it. So now let's say you're done with this kiosk, right? And I say, okay, I'm going to take this kiosk out of commission at this company, right? If you go back and you see here, all you have to do is, now I'm still working on one more screen. If you slide right like this and you edit, then you're going to be able to change the information like the display name, any passwords, or flip any of the rules back on and then save it, right? I'm still finishing the update. But let's say at this point you go, okay, this kiosk needs to be dropped. So you swipe right and then you say delete. Now when you delete, it tells you, are you sure you want to delete Sharmel kiosk? This will remove all data and settings from the kiosk, okay? If I now say confirm, it'll go through a process of removing that kiosk. Now that kiosk is removed here, it's removed from our company records on the server, okay? And if I now switch back and say, stop the screen sharing, and I go back to this and I pop the kiosk back up again, you'll see it says, please set company name and everything. So now it's released this kiosk from the company and reset the kiosk back to a state again. And that's it. So it's basically as simple as putting the kiosk basically on their network by just assigning the IP address of the kiosk. And once the IP address shows up, you know what the IP address is. So let's say I've got 1, 2, 3 kiosks, right? I put them all on the Wi-Fi network or on that. I can now go in and then I can say, okay, what's the first one? Let's say this kiosk is sitting at, let's say, PWT main entrance, okay? I've now put in that, I plug in and I say, okay, the main entrance. I plug in the IP address of that kiosk. I plug in the password. I change the password. I define what the rules are. And I say save. Then it's going to go through the same process. It says it starts registering now. And it says, okay. And you notice now at the bottom here, it just It used to say just those three, and then I assigned me. And you see,
Share your screen.
what's that?
Can you share your screen?
Ah, sorry. Oops, 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 oops. Made it again. Share screen. Okay, this. So I did that. And now you can see it basically says, okay, verifying, did all of this. Start see, and it says Miss Kritisha, Robert Gardner, and the last time was Tama. But remember, I went and added Sharmal too. It remembers that. So now to this kiosk, when it comes up, it sees all the users, including me, and it automatically starts synchronizing those users to the kiosk. And then it says, okay, it's online. So when you're done, you'll see that kiosk is there. So if you want to add another kiosk, you just go tap, you put in the name, the IP address, and all of that, you hit it. That kiosk now comes online, it loads everything in, and boom, you have your 2 kiosks or 3 kiosks ready.
Got it. So now that you added your name to it, should it recognize who you are now?
Yeah, it will. Now that I did, if I look at it now, it'll actually recognize me and pop the photograph when it scans me.
Okay. Is that working today, or is that something?
Yeah, I know that works. That works.
Can you switch the camera so I can see that?
Yeah, I mean, I can do that. The only problem is that when I go in my face, okay, you're gonna see. I'm gonna try and do this so that it basically can.
There you go.
See that?
Yeah, I saw it. I saw it. That's cool.
Yeah. So as you, and if I go in here now, right, and I go back to employees and I go back and I go back to manage kiosk access, and I go here and I say, I'm gonna take my, hang on, I'm gonna share this. So I go back here. Okay, this is playing like magic here because I keep, okay. So now I go back here and you see, if I now go back here and I go manage kiosk access and I take myself and I flip it off there. So now I say update it. So now it's updated the assignments, okay? And so now I'm no longer on that kiosk. So essentially what happens is that at this point, if I now go back again, so let's say I go done and I go, okay, I'm done now. And I go back to, I don't have to do anything here really at this point because I'm already off of it. So you can see, you know, if I go back to here, oops, sorry, go back here and say manage kiosk access, and I'll say, you see, I'm not in the assigned list because I removed from the assigned, I'm now unassigned. So if I go back to this, I'm gonna flip stop sharing and go back to the screen. So now when I go to the kiosk, you see, it just says normal temperature and admittance. It doesn't show my name because now I'm a stranger, but by flipping the switch to say like this, because I flip this switch, let me just go back to sharing again. Because I set this thing to say, when I configured this kiosk, I said, allow strangers, enable stranger login. So you're not gonna see the crazy red screen pop up saying stranger, stranger, stranger. You see? So that switch there controls whether it's gonna go stranger or like no stranger or whatever. So that is basically the streamlined mechanism of setting up a kiosk with like that's it, dude.
Yeah. So how would we remotely support these kiosks?
So what I'm gonna do is right now, so the first thing was obviously the setup, right, with the phone in the network. So the next thing will be the same kind of setup, but now running on the little Raspberry Pi in the network and everything going through that. So you'd still, my idea is you still do exactly the same. And when you remote, for instance, you're just gonna be checking, you know, knowing that company. And what'll happen is the Raspberry Pi will have an external IP address, you see? So we will know in the system that this is this IP, this is this Raspberry Pi. So when you're talking, the phone will talk first to the Raspberry Pi, who will sit in the middle, and then it looks at all the kiosks. So the idea that I have in my head is the exact same management, totally transparent, the fact that there's a Raspberry Pi in the middle. It just, our system happens to know there's a Raspberry Pi and it's talking to the Raspberry Pi versus, you know, directly to the kiosk. So you still can do the idea is to set it up exactly in this way so that when you say manage kiosks and you hit, like, let's say, and you connected to that company, it's connecting to the Raspberry Pi. And then from here, you can just go via your phone manager. But then also on the dashboard in the back end, we'll have the same kind of setup. So in the dashboard, you'll be able to see the kiosk, you know, tap the kiosk, see the configuration and all of that. And then even in the dashboard, you say add a kiosk. It will see the kiosk sitting in the inside. So you'll know what that IP address is. And so it registered. But once that thing is registered, the Raspberry Pi will see the kiosk as being online and report it back to the back end. So this will look exactly the same as to, you know, what it is. And you just don't, you know, it becomes totally transparent to the outside world that this kiosk happens to be sitting behind a Raspberry Pi in a private network. You won't even know that. It'll be as if you were sitting here talking to this kiosk with the phone connected to the Wi-Fi itself.
Okay.
So that's the whole design. But you've seen, what you see now is, what I tried to do was make, you know, take it and make it as simple as possible. And as you can see, there was no, like, you know, you didn't have to do a damn thing. You just basically plug it in, put the IP on, and then you just go. And if you know the password and you know the IP address, you can set up the whole kiosk by just tapping and saying. And I mean, these options here, if I go, let's go back to the kiosk again. These options here, like if I just, let me just go plus, you see, we've got the space. So here as we decide what options we want to put in, like for instance, you know, okay, we want this option and that option configurable. We just add extra buttons and I add it to the config at the back.
See your screen. I don't know what you're looking at.
What? I can't hear you. Sorry.
I can't see your screen. I don't know what you're looking at.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Oops. I know. I keep doing it. In the ass.
Just see it through your glasses.
Yeah. So if I go back, so you see, like here, if let's say for instance we go and we add more options, when they set it up, there'll be just more options here that we allow them to set up. You know, I mean, and we'll figure that out as we go along. I go, yeah, let's make that option configurable. Let's not make that. And then, you know, we'll add in the little check boxes and things here for those options. And for kiosks that are already configured, right? If we add more options, it doesn't matter because those options will just not be configured on that kiosk. But if you then go over and you hit the edit button, then all those new other options will show up and we can just set them accordingly for the kiosk. So now the other thing about it is that I added, and I still have to do this, is like, it's like each kiosk also stores the configuration that you see, that config. It actually stores all those flags also in a record that belongs to that kiosk on the server. So if you ever want to go back and, like, for instance, reload it, you can reload the parameters because the parameters are stored in the server. So for instance, if I go, I'll show you, stop share now, and I'm going to share my screen again. Let me just launch this application quickly while I'm doing this. Navicat Premium. So now, and I think that call is kiosk main entrance, right? So I'm going to share my screen again quickly and just go share screen, desktop, share. Okay, so now if I look at like the PWT, and this is the database, and I look at the tables, if I look at the company kiosks, you'll see the kiosk says PWT main entrance, which is the one I just named it when I came. It's that. It tells me this is the serial number on the kiosk. It goes across, and then one of the things I did was in here, you see kiosk config. Let me make us feel bigger so you can see it better. If you look at it, you'll see the configuration options being stored that you said. So, you know, see their password, Muse mask there.
Got it.
You
Yeah.
see? So it saves that configuration also up to the server in a configuration record for each kiosk. So, you know, so there is a way where you can quickly from the back end, someone, you know, we can look at it, like you can look at it in the server and say, oh yeah, that's that kiosk. Well, that kiosk is configured to allow strangers to use a mask off to enable the logging, the current password, the display name for it and stuff. So all of that information is also logged up to the server, and it stores that in the kiosk record, you know, so you know how each kiosk is configured. So we can look remotely and go, oh yeah, oh, that kiosk, no, that kiosk is not set up to force using a mask. So you have to go into your settings on the kiosk, I mean on the phone, and flip this button to enable it. And then what it'll do is it'll basically tell you, yeah, guess what? Now you know you might. So we can tell how each kiosk is individually configured from the server, you know?
Very nice.
So anyway, so that's some of the kind of fun magic that has been happening here in the background, but it's fully like, you know,